To be British and in Paris. Tim, thank you very much indeed. Lovely morning on the Champs-Elysees.
Could inspire you to don some lycra.
It's not a pretty sight.
Rupert Murdoch has stepped down as the director of the companies that run his British newspapers.
Services will be held across Norway today to mark the first anniversary of the attacks by Anders Breivik, in which 77 people died.
Wreaths will be laid at the scene of the bomb blast in Oslo, where 8 people were killed, and on the island where Breivik shot dead 69 young activists attending a political summer camp.
At least 10 people have died and thousands more have fled their homes after the Chinese capital Beijing was hit by the heaviest rainfall in more than 60 years. The torrential downpours struck on Saturday and continued into the night, flooding roads and blowing roofs off buildings. Reports from local news say that more than 500 flights have been cancelled at the city's main airport.
Thousands of people are reported to have fled Syria's second city.
Sailors in the world's longest yacht race will return to the UK later after a year-long voyage. The 40,000-mile Clipper round the world yacht race is made up mainly of amateur crews. In April, some British crew members had to be rescued by US Coast Guards after being injured in a storm.
The Olympic flame reached new heights today when it took a trip to the top of the London Eye. 17-year-old skier Amelia Hempelman-Adams took the torch around the wheel. She became the youngest person to ski to the South Pole when she was just 16 with her explorer father, David.
Those are the main stories. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. 11 minutes past 8 on this Sunday morning. Philip will have the weather for us in the next 10 minutes.
Now, if you are planning on doing a big shop later, don't worry, you don't have to rush today.
No, in England and Wales, larger shops can now open for longer on a Sunday. The usual restrictions have been suspended for the duration of the Olympics and the Paralympics.
Well, the government says it wants to encourage business, but some small companies are worried that they will lose out. Let's get some more on this. We're joined by Richard Gregg from the Federation of Small Businesses and entrepreneur Deirdre Bounds. Good to have you both with us. Morning. So let's just start it off. Do you agree or disagree that the Sunday opening hours should be extended?
Shall I go?
Go for it.
Okay. Yes, we agree. On the basis that for the Olympics, yes, why not? We've got to be open for business. We are concerned that it should stop at the Olympics. That once the Olympics are over, we'd like to go back to the regulation that gives the small shopkeeper an advantage to have longer opening hours.
Deirdre, do you disagree? Think it should stay permanently?
As we all know, if you land in a British high street on a Sunday morning and it's perhaps raining and you get there at 9:30 and it's all closed, it is the most depressing place.
Don't go till 10 then.
No, but sometimes you do get there early and you think, we are in 2012. Why do we just have this bureaucracy, once again, of businesses just being, there's a stranglehold on businesses when consumers, if we want to go shopping at 9 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the evening, why not? And I think this is going to be a really good test to see whether consumers want it. We're about to have the biggest show on Earth, they tell us, with the Olympics. Great. And can you imagine the people from America, people from Asia coming in, wanting to get something at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and it's closed.
This is the point. You've got tourists coming in now because of the London Olympics, so that's where the extra demand is. But I imagine the other side says, well, we're all used to Sundays being shorter trading hours. Shopkeepers, smaller shopkeepers, perhaps don't have the staff that larger retailers will have, so it would be unfair to them.
Well, 20 years ago, we were used to the whole high street being closed on a Sunday. Do you remember around about the same time your high street in your local town on a Monday afternoon closed at 1:30 or on a Wednesday? I mean, you couldn't even conceive of that now. What's holding us back?
Well, OK, what is holding us back, Richard?
Well, I suppose, first of all, there might be something, that people actually like to keep Sunday special. I know that's an old campaign from a long time ago.
Many people agree with that, though, and say actually Sunday should be the day of rest. And although that's gone a bit,
I think that's argument is passé. But I do think that small shopkeepers need a little advantage. One of the advantages, we can open 8-10 hours a day if that's what we want to do. And yes, I think for the Olympics, I think for the tourism, we've got to support that. We need the people to come here to have a great experience. I don't think we have to keep it permanently. I think there are considerations for staff. Okay, we're all in a situation where business is not brilliant and stores and people need to work as long as they can, but to put more hours on a Sunday, I don't think it's really necessary.
I mean, in the case of the big supermarkets, if you go into many towns, I mean, the main, the big supermarkets are open 24/7 right up until Saturday night. But then the smaller supermarket concessions in the towns on the high streets are open anyway on the Sunday. And so do the big supermarkets, do you really need to go and buy a flat screen TV from the supermarket on a Sunday? Can't you wait for Monday morning?
Well, you could argue, I mean, if your TV goes down, it could be the end of the world,
Well,
especially if it goes down now.
Especially if it's Sunday morning.
Exactly.
So, but obviously there's the online shopping as well. So it's an interesting argument, but we think that from a small business point, and obviously that's why I'm here. I represent small businesses. We need to have that little bit of extra time to ourselves. Our little specialist shops or whatever it is need to be able to say, yeah, you can come in on a Sunday at 6.
Just briefly, do you think the law will be changed in the future? Do you think there will be a time when actually everyone's going to be allowed whenever? Deirdre, you're nodding.
I think it will be. I think this is the beginning of it. And, this consumer choice, right or wrong, it's the future.
But is that then the beginning of the end for the small shops that you represent, Richard?
I'm never into
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Apocalyptic
forecasting. Yeah, it's the very word I was looking for, I think. No, I don't see that, but we do have real concerns that it could be the thin end of the wedge, yes.
Okay, all right then. Well, Richard, Deirdre, thank you so much. Tongue twisters this time in the morning.
An apocalyptic interview, that one, wasn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. And Deirdre's going to sell me a new set of teeth in her 24-hour shop.
Good.
Well done, thank you both for coming in. Great to see you.
17 minutes past 8, you're watching Breakfast from BBC News. Here's the main stories. Also to come in the programme.
Fun and exciting, it's got a lot of tension.
It started life more than 60 years ago, but we're finding out why, for hundreds of people, table football is more than just a toy.
There is nothing apocalyptic about the weather, though. It's lovely and sunny today, Philip.
For some, at least.
Much indeed.
Bradley Wiggins is edging closer to becoming one of Britain's biggest sporting stars, with victory in the Tour de France all but guaranteed later today.
But what impact would success have on him and on the sport of cycling?
And just how tough is the race? Well, here to tell us is the editor of digital magazine Cycling News HD, Paul Robson. Paul, good to have you with us. How is Bradley? This is what I wonder. He's worked so hard, over the past several days, and yet he's going to be competing. Is it Wednesday?
A week
on Wednesday. He's going to be exhausted, isn't he?
Well, if you consider the 3 weeks he's just had, he's been doing somewhere between 150 and 250 kilometres every day, and recovering in time to do the same thing again tomorrow.
Yeah, but that can only go on for so long, surely.
Well, he's been in extraordinary form all year. He's won 3 of the big week-long stage races this year: Paris-Nice in March, Tour de Romandie, and then the Critérium du Dauphiné, which has all set him up to be the favourite for the Tour de France, really. And he's held his form that long, so I think we can rely on him to hold his form for another week and a half.
Okay.
How much of an achievement is it for a British rider to win the Tour, then?
It's an extraordinary achievement. I mean, it's an extraordinary achievement for any rider, obviously, but British cycling 20, 15 years ago was really in the wilderness. We had odd individual riders who could go to the Tour de France and do well, but nobody who was a genuine contender to win. And to get to the stage now where we've got a British team with a British rider not just winning this race, but dominating this race from start to finish, really, shows how far British cycling has come.
What's changed then?
British cycling itself has changed, the organisation. Dave Brailsford, the team principal, both of British Cycling and of Team Sky, has turned the organisation around completely. He's opened up new ways of funding and applied that funding so successfully by bringing in the top sports scientists, the top coaches, and giving an infrastructure for young riders to come through from just being promising youngsters to being in a professional team in the biggest race.
So are we now the country to watch when it comes to cycling? When the other teams, you know, you always see lots of countries and you say, oh, this country's good at this, this is that. Are we going to have a reputation as great cyclists now?
I think we are now. I think that on the track we've had that reputation for a good few years, and certainly after Beijing 2008 when we cleaned up. The Australians certainly have been following what we've been doing very closely, and I think they'll give us a bit of a run for our money this time.
What's more important, Tour de France or the Olympics?
To a cyclist, Tour de France. I think Mark Cavendish said, as a British athlete, he's really, really keen to win a gold medal at the Olympics, especially home Olympics. But as a cyclist, it's the Tour de France. That's where he earns his legacy in cycling, where people will remember him as a legendary cyclist for what he's achieved in the Tour. And the same for Bradley Wiggins, but it's great that he's a triple Olympic gold medalist going on to win the Tour de France. Really brings extra profile to the sport as well, that it's someone we all know who's out there winning the Tour.
Okay. Paul, thanks. It's really interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming and giving us a bit of context to Bradley Wiggins' success.
Exciting. We're going to good to know as well that Britain's kind of on top when it comes to cycling, actually. One of the places that helped Bradley Wiggins, and Paul, you'll know this, on his way to victory was Herne Hill Velodrome in south-east London. Our correspondent Sophie Hutchinson is there. Sophie, it's a place I know well. I used to live very close to there, and it's lovely to know that it's still going strong. All gearing up for the Tour de France.
I know, it's exciting, isn't it? We're going to take a look at today's papers with the writer and historian Tessa Dunlop in just a moment. She's there, believe
somewhere.
me.
You're there, somewhere.
Let's have a quick look at the front pages, though, before we talk to Tessa. Very quickly, front page of the Telegraph. Pictures of some of the victims of the cinema shooting in the States, and their main story is about foreign criminals not deported at the end of their sentences, whilst they follow that up just below with stories of Commonwealth soldiers after serving in the British forces who then are sent home.
Bradley Wiggins on the front page of The Observer. It's leading with a story of how private banks are helping the more wealthy in the country hide some of their cash. And also a story that we covered earlier with Tessa, actually. Councils drawing up plans to teach children in disused shops, warehouses, even magistrates' courts, as there is a surge in the number of children needing educating.
The Olympics, of course, dominates in many of the papers. Many of the Sunday papers today are doing supplements for the Olympics because, of course, the games will have started by next Sunday, next time they have any editions out. And the front page of The Independent, welcome to the capital of the world, Britain open for business, as the Olympics just days away now.
Well, we talk about it, the Olympics being a global event, obviously, but apparently our veg are global now, Tessa.
Yeah, well,
and this is going to be expensive, I imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, we can blame almost everything, it seems, on the weather this summer. Wet summer gives shopping basket an international flavour. The problem is all the veg in the basket we consider to be quintessentially British. But nowadays, or this summer at least, broccoli flown in from America, courgettes from Portugal, even peas. Have been bought, from Guatemala. You do think, you know, this is going to cost money. They've done a sort of a round robin of what's in a standard vegetable basket this time of year, and the respective veg have flown 42,410 miles, no less, including the humble carrot and onion.
But you can go to a potato farm. I saw a piece on the television this week. The potatoes are literally rotten under the ground because it's been so wet.
It's so wet.
Yeah, so things like cauliflowers, cabbages, you know, actually rotting in the ground. There is hope, of course, that we're going to get this late summer, the Indian summer. So hopefully things will have a bit of a second coming. Or I say second coming, they haven't come the first time round. But they're saying it's too late, even for the humble apple. For instance, they think stocks of those are going to be down by at least 30%.
The Indian summer is in the south of England for 3 days. That's it. That'll be it.
Thanks for that.
We hear from Philip.
And there are problems with veg, but it's not just vegetables. Milk is exercising many people, not least the dairy farmers at the moment.
Indeed, and they very much rallied together, and there's been several blockades up and down the country, tractors, Land Rovers, even 4x4s, dare I say it, making some people say, well, just how skint are these farmers? But of course, the 4x4 is the farm hand's workhorse, if you like, nowadays, and they've been joined, according to the Mail on Sunday, by the ladies of the WI. I tell you what, they've
Don't
got...
underestimate
No.
the power of the WI.
remember the handbagging that occurred for poor old Tony Blair?
Indeed.
And apparently the police have been very surprised by the number of women from rural areas, wives, daughters, aunties, grannies, and many of the younger generation joining farmers. This is a serious matter. My dad was a farmer, actually. He's dead now, but I really remember him saying he was quite depressed in the last 10 years of his life. He said, oh, the supermarkets just squeeze us till the pips squeak. You know, absolutely, you know, any pence that they can slice off that can drum back into their profit margins. And, you know, it's interesting, you know, that they still make, on average, 15 pence per litre on the milk that's sold on the shop shelves, and yet the farmers are saying they're not even able to cover their costs. I think there's been a shift over the last couple of days where the most guilty parties, apparently, of the big supermarkets are the Co-op and Asda, and they have agreed to raise the price per litre slightly.
But we as consumers also buy from the supermarkets as well, so...
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know,
we could buy locally if we wanted to support the farmers as well.
I get my milk delivered to my doorstep.
There you go.
But it does cost more.
It does.
It costs me like
does.
61p a pint.
Yeah. Let's change the subject. The royal family. There's a review of royal family protection security arrangements in a bid to cut the multi-million-pound budget. Royal family may lose security guards.
And actually, the pictures here, you may think, who are they? Because they're not core royals. Eugene and Beatrice, no less.
But they're not minor ones, are they?
Well, they have actually already had their security cut back, and these are older pictures. They no longer get that kind of security because this is the third time in, I think, something like 3 years where there's been scrutiny and attempts to cut back on what we spend on protecting our royals. £128 million per annum for VIPs and royals. Scotland Yard, of course, are having to lose a fifth of their budget, and they think, you know, after this big Jubilee celebration, perfect time, a watershed, if you like, to review the costs. Meanwhile, apparently, this ties in with the royal family, who are hoping anyway to rebrand themselves as a core of principal figures, including Queen and Duke, Prince Charles and Duchess of Cornwall, and so too, of course, Duchess and Duke of Cambridge. And let's not forget Prince Harry. He's also going to get his bodyguard.
Roger, any hidden tattoos we need to know about?
None whatsoever.
On your person?
But that's an interesting
Tessa?
one.
Never too old to be inked.
No, I haven't, but you're
go.
never too old. 70-year-olds seem to be doing it. I've got a little bit of time yet, but gives me a lot of time to think about it.
It does. This is the wife of Lord Steele. Lady Steele, no less, the Scottish peer and former Liberal Party leader. And she got a jaguar on her shoulder for her 70th birthday. She did not tell Lord Steele before she had it done, and when he saw it, he said, I do hope that's a transfer. But it's not, and she says it's evidence you're never too old. In fact, as you get older, she says you can be more eccentric. They also picture Samantha Cameron, who of course famously has a small dolphin, I believe, on her ankle. It's interesting because we very much lead the tattoo industry in the Western world because of our maritime tradition. You know, we brought it back from the Polynesians with Captain Cook, and it's flourished ever since. You know, it has times of being very fashionable. Prince Bertie, Edward VIII was, Edward VII was obsessed with tattoos, had several, and it took off in the 19th century. Then a bit of a dip, and it's back in fashion.
Who'd have thought we'd get a history lesson on tattoos?
From a historian.
As well as everything else.
You could regard yourself as a blank canvas.
You first, Roger. Tessa, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Coming up on breakfast this morning.
Hello, you're watching Breakfast with Roger Johnson and Naga Munchetti.
Philip Avery will be with us in the next 15 minutes with the weather forecast, but first, with the time at just after 8:30, here's a summary of the morning's main news. And President Obama will visit Colorado today to meet the relatives of victims of the mass shooting at a cinema. Bradley Wiggins can secure a place among Britain's sporting greats today if he becomes the first British winner of the Tour de France in its 109-year history.
Thousands of people are reported to have fled Syria's second city of Aleppo.
Rupert Murdoch has stepped down as the director of the companies that run his British newspaper.
Sunday trading laws in England and Wales are being suspended until the end of the Olympics. And
Services will be held across Norway today to mark the first anniversary of the attacks by Anders Breivik, in which 77 people died.
Well, we're joined now by our World Affairs correspondent, Richard. Away today, thank you.
It's just after 25 to 9. Let's catch up with all of the day's sport. There's lots to talk about. Open golf, Formula One, but cycling, Will, is top of the agenda.
What was interesting as well with Bradley Wiggins, when he did his time trial yesterday, was that you had motion that he thinks he's won it, and he pretty much has, and barring catastrophe. But little bits of yellow. He had a yellow brake, a bit of yellow on the handlebars, because he was in full yellow.
Confident enough that
he looked like a superhero. Yeah, it's a colour. He's at Royal Leatherman St Anne's. Carthy. Scott has a 4-shot lead. He's looked so composed, hasn't he, throughout the whole championship so far. He's never won a major. Can he hold his nerve?
Well, that's the question for today. He tees off later on around 2:30, but the first few routes have started playing.
I don't think we can hear Carthy at the moment.
Do you know what she's done?
I'm sure she's saying all the right things.
She's forgotten to put her microphone on,
Well,
Carthy.
maybe someone's holding
We're going to
it.
have to... Oh, you see? I've just seen her look down and see
guilt,
where
the
it is. We'll get more... You know, she's been so excited.
Yeah.
I've been watching her tweeting all morning, and she's been seeing all the green...
Is all the sport for now.
I think you've had enough. I think you've got enough sport there, don't you? I don't know what to watch this afternoon.
We keep saying it's a huge weekend. I can't remember a weekend like this, especially with the Olympic Stadium and like the torch in his yellow superhero outfit.
You're voting for
I
Mr.
told you that
Wiggins
earlier,
to go
I'm
for
not
the
supposed to have an opinion, but I think it would be quite fitting if he
Not
wins
supposed
the
to have an
tour.
opinion, but you have one anyway.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because the Olympics is massive. I mean, it is the biggest sporting event in the world, and it
for
is
Wiggins.
happening in less than a week's time. And yet, Bradley Wiggins' success, the Open, there's so much going on. It's just remarkable.
But you think for Wiggins as well, you know, if he wins the Tour,
Well, thanks very much.
Thanks, Will.
Holiday makers who are heading to the continent will see their cash go a little bit further after the pound hit a near 4-year high against the euro.
So it's good news for the 2 million British holiday makers who are set to head overseas, as the majority of English schools, of course, break up or just broken up for the summer holidays.
We've got Bob Atkinson from the Travel Supermarket website with us. Good to have you with us.
Good morning.
Let's just explain why we've seen the pound move to this 4-year high, because it's all about Europe, really. It's not really about the strength of the UK economy, is it?
No, I mean...
Am I right in saying it's still some way off where it used to be?
Yes.
So it's not quite as good as it was however many years ago when the euro first came in.
Exactly.
But you need to get that rate.
You do.
You say 128 are some
Yeah.
of the best rates out there. I can guarantee if I were going on holiday tomorrow, I would not be able to find 128.
Right, so let's
Explain
take
those
best
credit
rates.
cards, because they're different, because they just think, oh,
Well,
just leave it
it's
till
the
last minute.
easy
I
way
must
to...
admit,
Well, there is a quick way to still leave it.
Full. Yeah.
You pay the internet rate. You save a lot of money versus that next person next to you who's just walked up.
Still got to ask, is it still better value, though, to go to Europe?
Isn't as strong. The Spaniards aren't holidaying as much in Spain because they're having a tough time, so they want every kind of euro they can get off the tourists, and they're enticing you in with deals. So do look up for them and shop around when you're out there. But Spain, Greece, Portugal, for the deals that are still left to go. And don't leave it until after the Olympics to book. Get in now before prices escalate.
Bob. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much. The time is 8:47. You are watching Breakfast from BBC News. Here are the main stories.